Being present, I call this meeting to order. First items on the agenda is we do not have any approval of minutes, so we can skip right to the items that are being continued. So first item is agenda item A, to be continued to the March 20th.
First public hearing, though, just to open the public hearing for this one.
Oh, yeah. So to be continued to the March 20th, 2024 meeting. This is a public hearing, request for determination of applicability, American Building Solutions on behalf of Donna Gonzalez, 75 Carolina Road, Assessors Map 81, Lot 124. Could I have a motion to continue that to March 20th?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And the public hearing is still open right now. Skipping to agenda item C, this will be continued to the April 3rd, 2024 meeting. Public hearing, notice of intent, Civil Design Consultants, Inc. on behalf of Dr. Nitish Nahata, 1438 Main Street, Assessors Map 59, Lot 58, DEP file number 305-1187. Could I have a motion to continue that to April 3rd?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. The public hearing is still open for that. All right. And then we're going to take some things out of order. We're going to go to agenda item E, public hearing, notice of intent, Norse Environmental Services, Inc. on behalf of John Magano, 129 Marshall Street, Assessors Map 33, Lot 10, DEP file number 305-1196. Could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Sure thing. Good evening, Maureen Carroll, North Environmental Services, here on behalf of Mr. Magano. I have full-size plans. I don't know, it's the same plans that were submitted with the application.
I'm good electronically, yep.
Here's Mr. Magano. So we filed a notice of intent with the commission to raise an.
Could you just both introduce yourselves for the record?
Maureen Harold, Norse Environmental Services. John Mangano, the applicant. We filed a notice of intent with the commission to raise an existing single-family dwelling, garage, patio, retaining walls, cut and remove trees. We'd like to construct a new single-family dwelling, deck, driveway, provide rooftop infiltration, buffer zone plantings, post signage, grading, and associated utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone. The dwelling will be serviced by town sewer and town water. So on your plan, the top picture is the existing conditions. The picture below is what we would like to do. The existing dwelling itself was constructed in 1942, so this obviously predates the Wetland Protection Act as well as the Tewksbury Wetland Protection Bylaws. We are requesting a waiver from your 25-foot no disturb to remove some impervious areas or the retaining walls, the concrete patio, and we're requesting to allow some lawn area within that 25-foot. We are proposing to restore a portion of this area by removing that concrete patio area that's located within the 25-foot, by planting shrubs and applying a seed mix, incorporating posts and signage as well. Essentially, what we'd like to do is just construct a modest-sized dwelling, deck and driveway. We're essentially proposing to improve the existing conditions by incorporating the rooftop infiltration, restoring a portion of the 25-foot, installing posts and signs that shall remain in perpetuity of the entire lot as well. The project proposes a net decrease of 242 square feet of impervious area. And I can open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
So I think Joe might bring this up, but I'll get it started. You're essentially gonna encroach into the buffer zone by, is it 700 square feet, but then reduce other parts by 500 square feet?
Right, so Joe and I came up with different numbers, but essentially they were around about the same, give or take. So, correct, so we're proposing to restoration is 575 square feet. Let's see, the existing disturbance is 663 square feet. But we are providing the rooftop infiltration and a net decrease of impervious area. So just given the restraints of the lot, we were trying to improve it overall.
So the existing dwelling, the garage, the new one would be, looks like on the left side of the garage if you're facing from the street. But the garage goes even further over. Could you shift the entire house a little bit further that way to get more outside of the buffer? Is that possible, or is there anything preventing you from doing that?
Just a moment. So you're suggesting we shift it to the south, is that correct? If,
The opposite, shifting it to basically the north, so it's roughly in line with the edge of the existing garage that's going to be
I
raised.
see. So the existing garage is approximately 8.8 feet off of the side property line. The house itself, we're proposing is 16 feet. The zoning, what does zoning require, John? Do you know? The side yard?
I think it's 15.
15?
Yeah.
So we're trying to position it so that we can comply with current zoning as much as possible. If we shift it closer to the northerly property line, then we're not complying with the side yard setback.
You'll still have to go to the ZBA regardless, right?
Yes.
Because the front is 25 foot setback.
But, yeah, so it'd be one, I don't know how they do waivers, but, you know, whether you have to get one waiver, you're gonna have to get at least a waiver for one setback. Is it just that you're trying to get the least amount of waivers?
Right, I mean, generally speaking, the zoning board of appeals, I don't think likes to grant too many waivers if they can prevent it. We are proposing infiltration along that line. I mean, we could possibly shift it. But I'm not sure how much we would even gain. The design that we're proposing in this layout, we intentionally tried to, at a minimum, stay 25 feet off of the wetland boundary. That's why the deck is proposed on the southerly side of the home rather than at the rear of the house.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
How big is this house gonna be? I'm trying to figure out the square footage.
2,200 square feet,
Oh,
so
2,200, so
it's fairly modest sized
it will fit
home.
with the neighborhood well.
Absolutely, it's not a McMansion type proposal.
Nice.
Is this house right after Squire Lane?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything would be better what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We did receive a DEP file number, and no comments was posted on the website.
I can go into my notes if you want.
Yeah,
Let's see. So in the application, it says that there's about 5,000 square feet of no build zone on the lot. I found that that is about to be 2,400 square feet. I think just the incorporation of the no disturb zone was part of that. So I'm operating off of a 2,400 square feet total no build zone on the property. So 10% of that, in reference to our bylaw, would be 240 square feet, which is essentially what the commission allows for applicants to encroach on. That's the amount that is allowed to be encroached. That being said, the applicant also states in their application that the existing dwelling and structures in the no-build zone occupy 700 square feet. I found that to be closer to 643 square feet. The applicant states in their application that the proposed dwelling would occupy 660 square feet in the no-build zone. I found that to be 710 square feet in the no-build zone. So bigger picture, there would be about 70 additional square feet of encroachment in the no build zone. However, as the applicant stated, they're also proposing about 575 square feet of buffer zone restoration within the no disturb zone. So when we're talking about encroachments, that might be a moot point if a waiver is going to be issued anyway. So it's just about what the commission thinks is compliant, whether it warrants a waiver, and if it is, if a waiver is to be issued, you know, if the commission's okay with the restoration and the amount of encroachment. Just another metric to think about is there's proposed 710 square feet of encroachment. The 10% is 240. So if you take the difference of those two numbers, it's 470 square feet of additional encroachment. And they're proposing to restore 575 square feet of restoration. So proposing additional restoration beyond what's proportionate to the level of encroachment.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Not hearing anything. This is a public hearing. I will open up to the public. If anybody would like to get up and make a comment, now is the time to do so. Give you a few seconds to do that. Not seeing anybody. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Before another motion's made, I just wanted to suggest some conditions, if an order could be issued. So if the commission were to approve of the notice of intent and issue an order of conditions, the commission may consider the following conditions. Standard condition number 1 through number 4, and number 9 through number 19. Special condition number 1 would be perimeter sediment control shall consist of a 12-inch diameter compost filter tube and an entrenched silt fence. Equivalent sediment control devices may be approved by the conservation agent. And number 2, 3 conservation signs shall be installed and maintained along the wetland boundary within the entire lot that is 129 Marshall Street. The design of the conservation signs shall be obtained by the Conservation Commission. So with that last condition, where the signs are proposed, it's just where the restoration is, but that's suggesting that the 3 signs should be dispersed along the wetland boundary instead. Does that make sense?
Along the wetland flags?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
instead of just the 3 right in front of the restoration area.
Gotcha.
Sure, we can do that. It's not a problem.
All right, if there's no further discussion from the commission, could I have a motion to approve this notice of intent as discussed at the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Thank you for
very
your
much.
time. Want these extras?
All right.
Looks worse.
All right. Next item on the agenda is public hearing, notice of intent, Civil Design Consultants, Inc., on behalf of First Street Residence LLC, 21st Street Assessors Map 81, Lot 192, DEP file number 305-1195. Could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Good evening, Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. You might recall, I think Mira Cousins had presented this initially. She was tied up tonight, so I'm kind of filling in for her. But essentially, the project here hasn't changed. It's essentially just some lot clearing and cleaning up the backyard. I believe everything was presented to you. There was a request for, and we provided a letter from our attorney that indicated that the applicant does in fact have the right to clear half of Delaware Ave, which is a paper street. And then there was a request that town council review that. That happened sometime in late February. And I believe the suggestion back from town council, or the direction, was that, yes, the applicant can do that, and potentially to include some language in the order if it were to be granted. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them for you.
All right. Any questions or comments from the commission?
I was gonna say, I think that language, based on the notes for town council, I think kind of clears up the issue that I had, so.
Yeah, this was the one where the
It was a
proposed.
paper street,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Joe, do you have any questions or comments?
My only comments beyond what the applicant has already stated is that if the commission were to approve of the notice of intent and issue an order of conditions, the following conditions could be considered to address the town council comments. The condition that would be included in the order would be in reference to a regulation within the Wetland Protection Act regulations, which is as follows. An order of conditions does not grant any property rights, or this order of conditions does not grant any property rights or any exclusive privileges. It does not authorize any injury to private property or invasion of property rights. So that should apply to this order. The second note is standard conditions number 1 and standard conditions number 1 through number 4 and number 9 through number 19 shall apply. In addition, perimeter sediment controls are to include a 12-inch diameter compost filter tube. The conservation agent may approve of alternative equivalent sediment controls. And the last one is 2 or 3 conservation sheds are to be posted and maintained in perpetuity along the 25-foot no disturb zone within the proposed limit of work. And that's it.
All right. If there's no further questions from the commission, I will open this up to the public. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to make a comment, now is the time to do so. I just ask that you go to the podium and introduce yourself. Not seeing anybody rise, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a motion to approve the notice of intent as discussed at this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go on to agenda item D. This is public hearing, notice,
E, right? Didn't we do D?
yeah,
We did E.
That was B right there, wasn't it?
yeah, that was B. We already did B, E. C was continued. Now is D. All right, agenda item D, public hearing, notice of intent, Civil Design Consultants, Inc., on behalf of LNG Main Street LLC, 1167, 1177, and 1187 Main Street, Assessors Map 61, Lots 1, 105, and 107 respectively, DP file number 305-1192. Could you please introduce yourselves for the record?
Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants.
And good evening, Don Bornstein. I'm an attorney. My office is Johnson and Bornstein. We're located at 12 Chestnut Street in Andover, and I represent the applicant.
Thank you.
I think maybe the best approach here is to kind of do a little bit of a recap. This has been in front of the commission since September, give or take. We're well through the process. And I think maybe it makes sense to just summarize where we've been, where we stand, and then if you have any further questions, I can try to answer those for you. So essentially, the notice of intent was submitted in September. You'll probably recall in October, we had a hearing. We specifically discussed the stream status because that impacted how we would move the project forward through the revision process, right? At that point, there was a consensus that the B series wetland, which is this limited particular, right? That was going to be intermittent, and then we conceded that whatever pictures we had for the.
That's where we can see it. Is that possible?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
And could you just use the microphone?
So during that October hearing, there was a general consensus, and the direction that we got was that there was agreement that there was this B series here was in fact intermittent and therefore just didn't have the 200-foot riverfront area. And as we discussed it, we conceded that the C series on the other side of the property was in fact, we just didn't have the information to show that it was intermittent. So we conceded that that was perennial and provided the required 200-foot riverfront area for that. That was important, so that just so we could get direction on how to move the project forward, is we did redesign to address local review comments. We came in November, we presented all of where the project stood at that point, went through all of the stormwater controls and the stormwater management standards. We went through 3 rounds of review with the town's local review consultant, and we got planning board approval on January 22nd. On the 24th, we intended on the 24th, we had a meeting. There was more discussion about intermittent versus perennial. We continued that. We intended to come back on the 7th. On the morning of the 7th, we got an email from Joe that a butter had reached out to DEP. DEP wanted to take a second look at this. It took them a couple of days to get us some specific comments. That was all provided to the commission. On the 23rd of February, we provided our response letter back addressing DEP's direction in their comments, right? So I'll try to summarize what we responded back to, and then we can maybe go from there. But the way I try to look at this is kind of a belt and suspenders approach, right? So we're here tonight talking about intermittent versus perennial, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But there's also a regulation that talks about redevelopment within a riverfront area. So if it were to be considered a perennial stream, the only real difference is that there's limitations on to what we can do within 200 feet of that stream, right? So because we had the benefit of being here in January and hearing comments again about this concern, we took a fresh look at it and we re-ran our numbers to confirm that we met the standards for redevelopment within the riverfront area. And that was the first couple of pages of the attachments, right? Essentially what we need to do is quantify the amount of disturbed area within 200 feet and not exceed that with the proposed. So we actually have a very slight reduction of a few hundred square feet of less impervious based on the current design that's there. So if and when we get to the intermittent versus perennial discussion, and there's still concerns about that, the intent was to just show you that we still meet the regulation regardless of this decision, right? There was also a very specific question posed to DEP about off-site flooding that I don't think was responded to by DEP in their second review letter. And I thought it was important just to go on the record and reiterate what we've presented to the commission in the past. Essentially, The only way that we could contribute to the existing off-site flooding problem is if we don't capture our stormwater and we don't meet the standards, right? This project has been reviewed by the local consulting engineer. We went through 3 rounds of revisions. We meet all 10 of the stormwater management standards. TEC eventually, after a few rounds of revisions, provided the review letter, which I provided for your review, which is, it's their opinion that the revised design documents as provided comply with local and state stormwater management standards, as well as general sound engineering practice. So I think it's important, just for the benefit of the record, to show that we've done everything we can to make sure that we don't have any negative impact on the existing flooding problem that some of the neighbors in the area experience. The last thing was specific to the stream. There was some direction in DEP's letter that I just felt really kind of should be addressed in a little bit more detail. So they had a section in there where they talked about field observations in subsection D. They talked about how the commission may accept the photos, but is not required to accept the photos. So, you know, we looked at this, and I think from our position, if the photos are from a competent source, in fact, oddly enough, the company that reviewed the design, right, also did that permitting for the abutter in 2015. So they're clearly a competent source. And if the information provided is credible, which we haven't heard anyone say it isn't credible, I'm not sure how the commission could not accept it and still fulfill the obligation to administer the act, right? So while you don't have to accept anything we say or any information we provide to you, you have that option for everything. I don't think it's specific to photos of a certain age. And so I just thought it was important to mention that and reference that so that you have the benefit of at least our opinion, because it appears that DEP was providing their opinion as well. The second piece to this is this discussion about more recent photos. And if we had more recent photos, I'd love to provide more recent photos, but there's real challenges in providing these photos, right? We were really fortunate that just now, 8.5 years ago, this application was prepared by a competent source. It was documented over a 4-day period, or more than that, I think it was 5 actually, where we have dates and we also have geotags on the photos. So we know where they were taken, and they extend all the way to the inlet of the pipe that goes under the oil company's property. We began the process in '21. Right? And that's when we came in front of you for the ORAD that you issued, where we walked through all of the resource areas, because we wanted to have that nailed down before we got into the heavy design, to try not to be in this position. We weren't looking at the stream before then because we didn't have a project, right? So we began in November of 2021. I tried to provide you with some information about the drought advisories that are issued by DEP, by the state, right? And so what DEP says that is, if there's a drought advisory, you can't accept the photos. They're not, they don't meet the requirements of subsection D if it's within a drought advisory. So we submitted in November of 2021 for portions of 2021, 2022, and 2023. There were drought advisories issued by the state, right? And then to complicate it and make it even more difficult, 2021 and 2023 were 2 of the, I think it's 5, 6, 7 rainiest years dating back 100 years, right? So I can appreciate what the commission wants, more updated photos for this. I can absolutely appreciate that. But the reality is that we're not going to get them before we start a project, right? And when the 3 years since we started the project, we have drought advisories, and then on top of that, 2 of those 3 years were the wettest on record. It's just not practical for us to be able to provide that information to you. It's just not. And further, again, there's no regulation that says that the photos can't be of any given age. You just need them after 2002. So with that said, we provided this information, we resubmitted it. Joe provided his responses back to us. We got nothing further back from DEP. I think we're at a position where we have this one single issue that we'd like to talk about with the commission, on top of anything else that you'd like to talk about, but, and that is, how does the additional DEP review letter and our responses impact the previous consensus of the status of Darby Brook? And with that, I'll try to answer what you might have.
Yeah, so I think it gets down to, I'm reading, I forget what page this is. It says, the section DEP suggests that the commission may choose but is not required to. And the second bullet point says, the act does not define the term credible evidence, but it's generally accepted to mean evidence that reasonably would be viewed as reliable, accurate, and having a basis in fact. And to me, that's kind of where a lot of the conversation has focused of, to a lot of the commission members, it does not seem like 8-year-old photos are reliable, accurate, or having a basis in fact, if the last few years have been the rainiest times on record. But this might be a different point. We were informed of some information, and if you want to.
Folks, I researched today to make sure there was no inference of impropriety, to make sure no one here had any connection with this LLC. This LLC has been dissolved by the state of Massachusetts in December 29th, 2023. We legally can't issue a permit because it cannot conduct business in the state of Massachusetts.
Okay?
And Mr. Attorney, I have the documents right here. I'm sure you'd like to see them.
Just if you could explain that again, you're saying the
Yeah, this is
applicant
where
entity is,
The LLC was involuntarily dissolved by the Secretary of Massachusetts here, the commission. And there's a laundry list of how it can be, but it looks like there was no filings for over 2 consecutive years.
sure, I'm not familiar with the corporate filings for the applicant, but for an
Okay.
LLC to be involuntarily dissolved by the Secretary of State is basically filing a check to get that reversed.
Correct, but the administration of government, Mass General Law, clearly states the limited liability company administratively dissolved continues in existence but shall not carry on any business except that necessary to wind up and liquidate its affairs. So us issuing a positive notice of intent gives them permission to conduct business because the land disturbance permit, et cetera, has already been approved, correct?
Yeah, the planning
Yes,
board has already.
yeah.
So the beginning of a commercial project is conducting business. So my recommendation to the committee here, which I provided them the documents, is we deny the notice of intent and then have it reapplied by a recognized entity.
Yeah, I would strongly discourage that. This is a very minor administrative item for the applicant to address. The applicant could be back in good standing tomorrow. I suspect, and Mr. Burraby is here with us tonight, I suspect very strongly that Garrett was unaware that this had happened. It's something that his corporate attorney could address in a single day. It certainly should not reverse 3 years' worth of effort on a notice of intent.
Not to interrupt you, but we would be voting against Mass General Law it's clear.
Oh, I could see you continuing this and wanting, perhaps, if you were really concerned about the corporate records of the applicant,
Well, it's-
to do that, but I would really strongly suggest against denying an application because you've got a late filed check to the Secretary of State's office.
So I agree. I think, like, what we've done in the past when we've had legal questions similar to this is we've asked town council to weigh in. So like you said, you've been working on this for 3 years. I personally would like to just continue this until our town council can review this, because I don't disagree with anything that's written in this document, but I don't understand the implications or how much that affects everything, so.
And is it routine of the commission to confirm the applicant's corporate status before votes, or has this just come up for some reason in this one, or?
This one came up for.
Yeah, I actually
totally.
looked into it to make sure I didn't know the people.
Okay.
And that's part of my due diligence. I do this on a lot of them. I just never have seen a dissolvement. So hence I brought it up.
No, and I'm sure Mr. Barabee appreciates it. On behalf of his corporate attorney, I will appreciate it as well. It's certainly something that should be corrected, but it is a run-of-the-mill filing requirement for the Secretary of State's office. It's filing an annual fee check to get it put back in a good standing. It's a very quick item. So I'd hate to see the commission carry this, what would amount to carrying this forward several more months, have to renotice, have to have butters come back out to voice their opinions, simply because a filing fee check needs to be run into Boston. I mean, that's what this item is. So I think that can be addressed easily. On the question of perennial versus intermittent stream, I think you've already heard from Jim. This project has been designed in all the stormwater standards in a way it doesn't matter if this is determined to be perennial or intermittent as far as stormwater mitigation is concerned, because it's already designed to the criteria doesn't change for stormwater mitigation, whether it's within the Rivers Act area or outside the Rivers Act area. There are some reasons why a property owner wouldn't want areas of their property determined to be within the Rivers Act, a perennial stream, have riverfront area for anything in the future. So there is a reason why we would want the commission to make that determination, look at the evidence that Jim and his office has presented. I've given a little and I'll just give it to you, I won't even explain it to you. I've got a one-page breakdown of the section of the DEP regulations that are relevant here. I'm a little bit confused by some of the direction that the DEP staff member gave the commission. So I just wanted to give you the language of the regulation. So you've got the language itself. You can read it, you can make your own call. I've got the one section called out here, and then I've just bullet pointed the underlying pieces of it. So if I could just hand that out, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
And just so you know what you're looking at, like I said, I'm not going to spend time explaining. I just want you to have it in your hand as this thing continues either tonight or other nights. This is the section that deals with what is the applicant's obligation to try and overturn the presumption that the stream is perennial. It's shown on the USGS map. It's a presumption of perennial. We can reverse that presumption by providing the credible evidence that the stream was dry on 4 different days. There's no limitation as in time, except it has to be after 2002, when the regulations came in. And then you have to believe that you've had credible information of that. And I've just bullet pointed what it means to be credible, that list of things. Here, like Jim pointed out, it's kind of interesting that the source of the information back in 2015 is actually the town's peer reviewer today. It's the same engineering office. So I think we could all agree that they're a credible engineering office. So that's all I wanted to give you, explain to that. Happy to clear up the Secretary of State's issue.
So I don't know exactly where that leaves us right now.
Dan, can I say something? I think that you're really mischaracterizing that letter from DEP, the email from DEP. I think that was a very stern letter telling us not to accept the evidence that you have shown us, and I don't think you're taking that as seriously as they clearly meant it. And, you know, we shouldn't be accepting those photos because there's no date stamp on them, there's no wetlands flags in them, and comments that were made before, like anecdotes that people have seen it dry don't matter. You know, it was a very stern email, and I think you're exactly proving their point. You're basically saying you can't provide updated data because it's now perennial, because it's not an anomaly that we had record rainfalls in the past few years. I mean, this is our climate now, and I just think that you are actually proving the point that it is now perennial.
So I would just correct the record, right? We do have dated photographs that have a geotag on them. So while we don't have a wetland flag, right, because it's hard to capture the small writing on a ribbon and a stream at the same time, what we do have is these geotags, right, which are on smartphones now, so when you take a picture, you know where the photo was actually taken. So we do have that information. And I can totally appreciate the concerns around climate change. Unfortunately.
We all want housing built on Main Street. We want affordable housing on Main Street so people can access public transportation, so because the school buses already go by there all day long. I mean, we all want that, but we want it built in a resilient manner. We do not need yet another parking lot in Tewksbury that floods every time it rains.
It won't
And
flood.
that's what we're trying to
No,
avoid.
so I think in that goes into the discussion about, I just want to finish that one thought before I was interrupted. I don't write the regs, right? The state, and I know you guys don't either. The state does. We're very aware of climate change. This is my chart on the last page of my letter from the 23rd, because we monitor this stuff and we try to keep up with where we stand from a climate perspective, right? So we can kind of understand that. So I'm sympathetic to that, and I keep a watchful eye on it. But at the end of the day, right, we have a set of regulations that we're trying to adhere to, and we do adhere to those regulations that you're administering, right? Getting to the point of a flooded parking lot, there's a floodplain associated with Darby Brook, right? It's at elevation 15. We're at elevation 17 and a half, give or take. We're 2 feet above it with our parking lot. We don't take any of the storage volume outside of that floodplain. First of all, we can't if we didn't come to you and go through the proper steps. But that was a piece of the design intent when we began this, was to make sure that we keep everything outside of it. Beyond that, we're actually removing a significant amount of impervious surface that is currently right up against the wetland, right? So like, I'm sure you guys all went out there and you walked it and you've seen it. There's a tennis court that's literally right up against the wetland area, right? That was probably built 50 years ago, whatever it might have been. That whole area is being restored back to a vegetated state. So this won't result in flooding on our site, and it will not increase the existing flooding problem that the abutters have to contend with. The challenge that the abutters have is that their building was put in the floodplain, right? So their building is actually in the floodplain. And that's why when that brook overtops, it does exactly what the models show. It rises up to somewhere about elevation 15, and that's right up against the base of their building. And that's why they have those problems. We're staying outside of that area altogether. We're not going into that area. And that's something that, we decided when we began designing the job is we're going to try to stay out of that. I just want to approach this so you can see this in more detail. So the existing floodplain is approximately elevation 115. You see this dark line here, right? That's the elevation 115, and then it wraps around over here, and it kind of comes up over here. We're all the way over here, right? And so not only do we have 100 feet, give or take, to that floodplain, but the most shallow, lowest grade of my parking lot is elevation 120, right? So we're 5 feet above it. I'm 5'9", so my parking lot's like this high, this much higher than where the floodplain is. So all that volume maintains. We could actually go and we could fill in all of this area that's outside of the floodplain, right? But maybe it gets triggered when we get storm events in excess of 100 years. We've actually pulled this out, right? We've pulled out the tennis court. We probably have close to 100 feet of revegetated area. And we're maintaining a large area even beyond what is mapped as floodplain. So.
So I guess I would be remiss if I didn't say anything here. But just to kind of maybe reiterate some points, but I think the conversation of perennial versus intermittent was extensively reviewed back in late 2023, November, December. In the unofficial vote at the time of the commission was like an unofficial 3-2 of that B series wetland would be deemed intermittent. And that was unofficial. And then it wasn't until Mass DEP provided comment on a separate project, which then translated to this project of the comments were similar where the DEP provided guidance that the commission, something to the effect of doesn't have to accept the photos. They can use their discretion in the time frame in which the photos can be accepted. So that's purely DEP's opinion that was communicated to the commission. Now, me as a regulator reviewing the regs, myself, and our bylaw on a daily basis. I don't know where Mass DEP is grounding that opinion, but it is nonetheless their opinion. So I guess I say that to say that the commission, when it was originally reviewed in November, December, the issue was purely the dates of the photos. Nothing else related to, this conversation of like competent source and such, and all the other requirements of subsection D. So I guess I just wanted to state that for the record.
I'll reiterate two things. Age of the photos at 8.5 years, we found not acceptable. And as Mr. Hanley said, it wasn't convenient to get photos. Convenience isn't our issue. That was your words. I wrote it down. We just want a good, safe project and done correctly. So I myself can't be worried that it's hard to get photos before you build. It doesn't enter into my thought process. and the climate is changing.
Right, and so like my goal was to kind of, like, we have to provide what you guys want, right? But there's practical challenges, so all my intent was to explain the practical challenge, right? We had more rain, we had 3 droughts. It is what it is, right?
So you said the stormwater standards are the same regardless of intermittent.
Doesn't matter, the stormwater design would not change, right?
So in your letter to DEP, you say there's little impact on the drainage design. So is there an impact?
Yeah, you know,
I guess you worded it, you're saying there's nothing, but then to an official letter to DEP, you say there is impact,
Well,
even if it is little.
So the change could be, right, that we would have to have less impervious surface within that 200-foot buffer zone, right, to match the existing amount. Since we didn't go through that analysis, we don't have the mean annual high water line delineated. I didn't want to be definitive with the statement, so.
Okay.
Yeah. There will be no change in the sense that we have a subsurface system that recharges groundwater, that we won't have an increase in peaks, the water quality standards are met. Yeah.
And Jim, I don't mean to cut you off. Jim, the criteria remains the same.
Correct. We're still obligated to meet the 10 stormwater management standards, right?
Yeah, if you determine that that's the B-series wetland or perennial stream, extends Rivers Act area onto the site, the criteria for stormwater management doesn't change at all.
So let me ask you the question then too, just kind of for the public. What is the difference in the design from intermittent to perennial?
Okay, so that's a great question. So if, what we provided, right, in pages 3 and 4 of our handout is a summary of the amount of impervious or disturbed area, right, degraded area. And how DEP and the standards define that is an area that doesn't have topsoil and is not stable, right? So in essence, everything in red here is degraded within 200 feet of the riverfront area. We used the ortho photo that we had. I had a conversation with Joe. He suggested a better way to do it would be to flag the mean annual high water, right? So these could change slightly, without a doubt. And then this is the proposed, right? So essentially, the only difference between your determination of intermittent and perennial is that we would be obligated to limit the amount of impervious surface within this area to the pre-development, the current amount that's out there right now. When we calculated this out, based on our current design, we have a net decrease in impervious surface of about 300 square feet. Now, if I have to move the actual 200-foot riverfront area a little bit to satisfy Joe's comments, which that's what we would do, those numbers are subject to adjust a little bit. But at the end of the day, the discussion that we're having about perennial versus intermittent, this project is viable either way. We're going to make this project work. My concern is, and I just put it in the last paragraph of my letter, is sometimes projects fail, right? Sometimes projects stall out, they don't go anywhere. And if we're on the record as having this as perennial, it could significantly limit what anyone would want to do in the future, right? So it's kind of the inverse of the argument that we're having now.
So I guess if you do anything in the future, you'll have to come back.
Oh, of
before
course.
conservation.
Yeah, of course, right.
And
Right.
just so you're aware, I'm not sure if you've watched any of the past Conservation Commission
Yeah.
meetings, we've revised the bylaws.
I know.
So
Yeah.
the project would essentially have to prove that it's intermittent at that point in time. Okay.
Right.
So if you're saying it doesn't necessarily impact the project now, is there a big concern just moving forward with perennial? Let me ask you that.
So, okay, so the big concern is the timing, right? Is the timing of when we get out there and when we're able to begin construction, as well as the cost, right? I mean, the discussion that we had in the fall gave us the direction that we used to revise the plan and to submit that, and, that's the problem, right? We need to, if these numbers tweak a little bit and I need to lose a parking space, I got to resubmit a plan, I got to revise stuff, I got to put everything back in. And so that's the real challenge that we have, is that the direction from the fall changes a little bit, and it costs us time and money.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So currently, the way I see it is there's kind of three options. One, somebody makes a motion to deny this based on the applicant not having the legal right to do that. Based on past discussions, when there's been a legal question like this, we've, continued the hearing and, asked town council to weigh in. So that's the second option, is continuing until we can get, because not that I don't believe you when you say it's a filing error, but who knows? I'm not a lawyer, none of us are lawyers. Town council might go, no, this is the worst thing in the world. Doubt it, but, it's in front of us at this point. I think we have to take that into consideration. The third option is we ignore that and, vote on it as is, as if we didn't know about the dissolution of the company. So I'm personally in favor of continuing until the next meeting so we can have town council review. And at that point, who knows, we might be having the same discussion about this, about, you claiming that our hands are tied and us not wanting our hands to be tied. But,
I agree with you, Dan.
all right. So before we make any motions, this is a public hearing. So I will open it up to the public, but I don't think I'm going to close it right away. All right, so if anybody in the public would like to make a comment, please go up to the podium and,
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Paula Rowe, and I'm a butter. I do have dated video and pictures of the stream, and I just want to let you, I'm sure you're aware of it, that McClellan Oil, their land is higher than our land. They do have a retaining wall on that stream, and it does go a little lower behind our building. Also, I'm not sure if you could get on
can
the
you just
website,
speak a
but
little bit more into the
Sure,
microphone?
Cindy, the weather girl on Channel 5, Cindy Fitzgibbon, she has it on her website that, yes, the rainfall has changed over the years, and she has a graph from 1977 on and how much of an increase we've had in rain. If you want to check that, to show you it's changed. But yeah, I have pictures, I have the video, they are stamped, and I've worked in that development for over 40 years, and that stream has never gone dry. I also have pictures of that. I can email them to you. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Just please introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Keith Bias, and I'm also in a butter. One of the things I'd like to point out is that in the discussions here, over on this side, they're going to be filling in by the street to make a parking lot and everything. All of this area now is wetlands, and that goes into the storm drain system for the town. Once they fill that in, that's all going to be pushed back, and it's going to go over into the other system, which is basically coming over next to our property and going down the stream. There's been no talk about that at all, but that's going to impact the amount of water we get there. They said when they designed this that they're going to take the same amount of water that they would have, and then I asked if they could increase that, and they didn't comment, so they're not going to. But they could. So if they could increase that, the amount of storage capacity there, that would be beneficial to us over here. They talked about this, that this is at a below plane. He just said that that's going to get flooded because it's lower the plane and stuff. It never got flooded before. This is a recent occurrence that it got flooded. It never got flooded before. If you take this water and put it under, and the reason it did get flooded, by the way, is for 20 years ago, somebody approved that they could put this huge asphalt floor in to put oil tanks and stuff on, and that's just make it an impervious thing. So the solution to that was to take a culvert and put it underneath that and dump it right next to my property. That was the solution that they had back then. So it's just dumping all of this water out here, dumping it right next to our building. I would like to see some kind of plan where that goes into the town's stormwater. So it gets it off our property and gets it into the town stormwater. That would be a real solution and allow them to do their project and not affect us.
Thank you. All public questions are directed at the chair. I will give you the chance if you'd like, but you're under no obligation to respond. But if you
Yeah.
would like to
Yeah, I mean-
clear up anything.
I mean, I just two things. The suggestion is that, the water from the area in the wetland toward Main Street will wrap around into Darby Brook, and wasn't considered, I think, it was considered, right? And so we did an entire stormwater design. We provided it for review. The consulting engineer reviewed it and has confirmed that we satisfy the standard, and it is consistent with standard engineering practice, right? So we did consider that, and that's not an issue. And then the second one would be just that, I think it was said that it hasn't been dry in 40 years, right? We have photos from 2015, and then I think we had a photo from 2021 with the original application, but that was in a drought, right, in that area. And then the more important piece is that the portion of the stream that's adjacent to the abutter, we've conceded that that's perennial, that we don't have enough data or photos to show, right? So the real question is that B series behind the property.
So I guess this is a bit late to,
Can I respond to that? No, because this is
sir,
into that.
sir, you can respond, but after this, I'm going to limit public comment to 2 comments.
Okay, you
total.
get the comment after I.
Yes, and I'm allowing you, if you would like to make a comment, now is the time to do so. So this is a little bit late to ask this, but you have the pictures from, is it 2015, showing what you consider to be proof that it's dry. Did you attempt to take pictures at any other time and got 3 pictures from
No.
1 year?
No, the only, we weren't able to because of the conditions that we've talked about, right? It's wet, or it was a drought, right? So when it was a drought, we weren't looking because it didn't make any sense, it didn't matter anyways. Then when it's wet, it's flowing, right? So it's not as if we're talking about a river that never flows. We all know it flows, right? It just is that standard, 4 days over a 12-month period in non-drought conditions, right? And that's what we've provided.
All right. So.
I would recommend continuing to the next meeting. I'll reach out to town council, verify the corporate dissolution. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but I'll clarify that. And then I guess we address, are we going through the intermittent versus perennial thing next meeting, or? I guess we can do that. that would be my recommendation to the commission.
I'll entertain a motion to continue this until we can speak to town council.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And just for the record, the public hearing is still open, so there will be further chances to comment next meeting.
What was the date of the continuing? Was it April 3rd?
Yeah, March 20th is the next meeting.
20th, okay. Okay, thank you.
A few seconds.
Where are we at?
All right, next item on the agenda is agenda item F. This is an enforcement order for Jose De Oliveira and Mariela Dos Reis, 765 Whipple Road, Assessors Map 31, Lot 57. Could you please introduce yourselves for the record?
Karen Skinner-Catroni, wetland consultant.
And Victor Alvis.
Thank you. And what would you like to present to us today?
So do you have the plan? Do you have a plan, a revised plan? Okay. So we were here before you some time ago, after some fill was noticed on the property along the left-hand side of the driveway. So we had a plan done in, like the as-built plan, I guess. So the patio in the rear is a little bit bigger, and we found the fill went into the 25-foot buffer, 3.8 feet, and is equivalent to 43 square feet within the 25-foot buffer. The applicant was originally going to make this a driveway, but they're going to seed it with grass and not use it as a driveway, if the commission will allow them to keep it there. At the last meeting, we also discussed putting plantings as mitigation along the fence in the rear, the right rear of the property, doing some mitigation plantings, shrubs.
So how much do you say the fill area goes into the?
Goes into the 25 feet, goes 3.8 feet into the 25, and that area is equivalent to 43 square feet.
43 square feet. All right. Any questions or comments from the commission? If none for right now, Joe, do you have any questions?
What are we looking for here? I thought we had, they turned it into a parking area, now you want to turn it into a lawn?
So I'm sorry, it wasn't, it was just fill, it was fill placed there. So at the time.
Well, they're currently parking on it.
There's no, it's not impervious. I don't know
Correct,
what's
but
happening.
they're using it as a parking area.
Oh, I don't know that, but they said they would like to put
Okay.
lawn there. So,
All right, I understand now.
Joe, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah. So basically, the purpose of producing this site plan was that there is some work that wasn't permitted based off of the order of conditions that the commission had issued. One was the patio work being done partially in the no-build zone. You do need a permit for the patio, although the patio itself, per our bylaw, can be constructed in the no-build zone. Nonetheless, it still requires a permit for it, and that's just something that wasn't included as a permit. In addition, there was this fill area added and surveyed onto the plan. Based off what I have seen, it is impervious and it is asphalt there.
oh, is there asphalt there?
Yeah.
Is there? Is
So-
there asphalt on the?
Some of it is just there.
So I wasn't aware.
No,
that
that's
there was
fine,
grass.
but I'm just, from
I
my,
got a close look, it looked like crushed stone from the street, but
yeah,
It looked like a triple pack. which is a compact for parking.
Yeah.
So would it satisfy the commission if we remove that and put grass there?
Well, so that can be something the commission considers, but my notes to the commission are that this is fill partially encroaching into the no disturb zone. It's always under the same mindset of what would the commission have told someone who is proposing this? So the commission can determine whether the fill should just be entirely removed because it was never permitted, and that's, the commission's fully within their right to order that. So all of the fill material, or the commission can say, okay, you can just scrape back the 3.8 or 4 feet, whatever it was. So that is essentially not in the 25-foot no disturb zone. If anything's to be left in place with the fill, the commission can also consider, okay, is this something that warrants an amended order of conditions, or is this something that can just be produced on an as-built when the request for certificate of compliance comes from, or is applied for? So that's basically two questions is, one, should the fill material be left in place? And if so, how much should be left in place? And two, if there is stuff left in place, such as the patio, how would the commission like to handle that? Through an amended order, or just as part of the as-built that is submitted through the request for certificate of compliance? So I'd like to hear any thoughts from the commission on that.
So I think what's disturbing about the filled part is it looks like it's going to slide into the wetlands.
That is
It
my-
looks so unsafe and unsteady that I would be really concerned about that.
Looks like boulders filled in
Yeah.
with soil. And I think we mentioned that. Is that structurally sound? Are we going to let them take 3 feet off in the next torrential rain,
Yeah.
wash that into the wetlands? I think,
If it was like, say, a retaining wall, converted into a retaining wall, is that something the commission would be okay with? I guess I hear that, but it's just about whether the fill material itself can be left in place, if they can work with what's there, or if it should just be removed entirely.
what do you guys think?
I would like to see the fill area at least be taken back so it's out of the 25-foot buffer zone. You know, if that's going to happen, then, like, I didn't consider the idea of a retaining wall. I don't know exactly what goes into the construction of a retaining wall, but that does seem like I would be, perfectly fine with that, with that option. So that's, essentially where I stand, if anybody would else.
Yeah, at a minimum, it shouldn't be in the 25-foot buffer, and then anything else that we want to do, I'd be fine with it as well.
Yeah, just let's contain what they've done.
Yeah.
Right, so it doesn't go into our
Yes.
resources.
Protect the wetland.
Right, yep.
Whatever that means, or whatever retaining wall or whatever structure needs to be built.
Right.
And if it's just easier to get rid of more fill too, then I think whatever protects the wetlands and isn't in the 25-foot buffer is my opinion.
So I guess I'll, because I know you're acting as part translator for this, if you guys want to take a short recess to go discuss this, I'm perfectly fine with that.
So you want to know what they want to do?
I know they're here, so if you guys want to take a
Okay, I'll
quick break
explain to them.
to talk about it.
That's fine.
So you guys need this to remove is it almost 4 feet, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
We can work with that.
what was that?
I say we'll work with that.
All right,
We'll wait for Karen to come back. So would you?
Okay. So they're happy to move it outside the 25-foot. They'd like to keep the fill there and put a wall in. So I can have that shown on a plan for you.
Just to be clear, what would go into the construction of a retaining wall like that?
I mean.
Well, you have to have footings.
Right,
Yeah, so-
it's fairly significant. You're gonna have to dig down, put a footing, and then it has to be backfilled to be tied into it's work.
I think anything over 4 feet requires a building permit.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where I'm getting at, is that that's also going to require, a building permit and whatever else may happen.
So if it's under 4 feet, you don't need a building permit, right?
That's the direction that I got from our building commissioner.
Yeah.
So if it's over 4 feet, which I think it's like 6 to 8 feet high.
Yeah.
It requires a building permit. So this is just interesting because I just don't know, because this is an enforcement order. Enforcement orders don't typically, or they shouldn't permit work to happen. So how would the commission want to, this can kind of be like how we handle minor modifications. I kind of write a letter summarizing what's agreed upon. Just so it's like formalized in some way, or it can be through an amended order, which would require another butter notifications. I'm not sure if that's overkill, but how would the commission like to permit that work?
Well, in my opinion, this is gonna be a lot more work than just removing 4 feet, because we're not gonna allow any structure in the 25-foot.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to go 6, 7, 8 feet in to get it, so you're not in the wetlands, the 25-foot buffer. The footing or whatever like that, whatever wall they construct. So I think it needs to be a fresh application.
Doesn't getting a building permit at this point in time start that clock over or no? Or for that, could it be a minor modification if they have to go for a new building permit?
Yeah. So the enforcement order would still be written in a manner such that it's, get all the fill outside of the 25. And then the minor modification aspect would be the permitting side. But as far as a fresh application, that would either be an RDA or notice of intent or an amended order.
What's the easiest? We don't want to burden them, it's.
The technical way to do it is to have it through some sort of permitting process. However, at the same time, we've also done minor modifications where it's just, if it deviates a little bit, but is still within the intent of the project, and it's not enough for an amendment, then we do minor modification, so.
But this was an unpermitted event.
Correct.
So
if you're getting at not doing a minor modification, the RDA would be the easiest, in my opinion.
So DEP has recommended unpermitted work to be done under the enforcement order. So, and then you can give timeframes and that, so you can look into that if you like, whatever the commission would desire. I prefer not to have the family go through another filing, it's just costing them money, and so, and they're happy to work with the commission. I mean, an RDA is fine.
All right. One more time, what are the options in front of us?
So regardless, the enforcement order would be written in a way that's all the fill to be removed outside of the 25-foot. So that's always going to stay there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question is how to permit the unpermitted work that's being allowed by the commission within the 25 to 50 foot, right? So it's either minor modification, which is just amounts to a summary of this agreement that we're having now and being sent to you, or an RDA, or an amended order. I mean, it's really up to you as the applicants and whatever you would want to.
So a minor modification, they would have to come back to us with the plan, and it would be put on the agenda, and then we would vote on it then, right?
And they're going to have to get a permit anyways, from a building permit, right?
Yes.
So that will make sure that the wall is safe and built properly and all that.
Fully sound, correct?
Yes, for the retaining wall, yes, it would require a building permit. Evan, to your question, yes, the minor modification is like advertised in advance.
Yeah, agenda. So it would come back to us, and there would be a plan that we would essentially approve, so we're approving a permitting piece, but just writing. The violation still is gonna be there until the work's complete, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with the minor modification. I think that's
Yeah.
more streamlined, and to Linda's point, we're kind of covered that it's gonna structurally be built through the building permit, so I don't have any issues
So
with
we
it.
do a minor modification in accordance with them pulling a permit,
So it can be,
that condition on there, that there was a permit pulled for the retaining wall?
it can be, the enforcement order stays, so everything outside of the 25 foot. And then the minor modification can be discussed once the retaining wall plan is submitted. And that simultaneously, though, it's be submitted to the building department,
Right.
so once that plan is put together, if you submit it to me, then I can put it on the agenda for the minor modification and stuff like that. So, that make sense?
Yep, clearly.
All right, do I have a motion to,
Continue?
is it
What do we-
continue or
are we
to
gonna continue?
approve, or to,
So to amend the enforcement order as discussed.
I'll make a motion to amend the enforcement order as discussed at the meeting.
all right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. So
Okay,
as discussed as minor modification.
so you'll send me some documentation.
I think we wore Joe out.
The agreement that we made, send me documentation on it.
So I can send you something, but the minor modification would come after the plan for the retaining wall is submitted. So once that plan is generated and submitted to me, that's when I put the minor modification.
Oh,
It's like, it becomes an agenda item on
Okay.
the, yeah.
All right, great. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is agenda item G, tree cutting inquiry for 740 North Street, Assessors Map 51, Lot 3.
Denied.
I need a motion for that. Joe, could you fill us in on the details so far?
Yeah, so this was discussed by the commission a little while ago, probably in the fall or early winter of 2023. So this was the tree cutting that occurred on town-owned property. It's not in a jurisdictional area, but it's the land under the management of the Conservation Commission. We had basically issued them a letter saying, prepare some sort of restoration plan. Admittedly, it wasn't a detailed letter describing what was expected. It was just prepare a restoration plan for us. There was only one resident who got back to me in a letter that said something to the effect of, I will plant 5 trees in the spring. So this letter is now an attempt to give them one last chance and to provide additional detail on what's expected of the restoration plan. So they would have until May 2nd to produce that restoration plan in accordance with this letter, which is much more detailed. Essentially what it's asking for is that restoration plan, which is only asking for a one-to-one replacement of what I think was there based off my field observations, which I think objectively is pretty fair. Like, I think they may be getting off easy, to be honest, as far as a one-to-one tree replacement. You're potentially cutting down 70 to 100-year-old trees, and now we're asking for 4 to 6 foot high trees as a replacement.
I was gonna say, we're not asking for saplings, we're asking for established, 4 to 6 foot.
Yeah, 4 to 6 foot.
All right.
Yeah, which is, they're still pretty small, and I think by definition can be considered a sapling, but
Okay, because I've seen some of these plans where they go out there and they stick something this
Yeah,
big in the
yeah.
ground, and I go, yeah, that's not working.
Don't dig a hole and put an acorn in there.
Right,
and go, "Oh,
right. If you
yeah."
can put your heel on it and put the
Yeah.
tree in, it's not big enough, right?
But I had this letter reviewed by town council because the letter indicates, if you don't do this by May 2nd, then court proceedings would follow. And then
And his
From there.
comments were,
his comments were, a letter looks good, Joe.
all right, send it. I forget denied, right?
So I did want the commission to bless the letters that were prepared, and then I can send them off.
You send them certified?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not return receipt though, just because that requires their signature.
Don't.
Well, they can just ignore it. Certified mail, you can
I think
still.
you can send it, straight mail and certified.
Yeah. I'll send it certified mail with no return receipt request.
Right.
Because you can still track it with the number.
Right.
That's it.
All right, yeah, that,
Is there, you guys want to, agree to the letters being sent? Or you guys?
I'm not agreeing to anything, right?
do you want to make does anybody want to make a motion to,
I make a motion to send the letter.
yeah, to
Right.
compel
Second.
our agent to send the letter? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
That was simple.
All right, old business, new business, administrator reports. Anything?
Dan, old business, we were gonna check in with Ames Hill in March and see if they're making plans to do the restoration and plantings.
Okay. Did have I could put that on the next agenda. Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to them.
I mean,
you.
spring's coming quick.
Yeah, I've seen people already, the gardeners out there already doing the mulching and everything, so.
All right, if there's nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I-
Chair votes aye as well.